Hello, this is the Extraordinary Rayman because my opinion is just that interesting. Today I'm here to talk about the God Machine. Now, I first picked up the God Machine a couple of years ago now with some, income tax return money that I got. I got a whole bunch of comics. And I picked this one up because I thought it looked interesting. I thought the art was interesting, I thought the title was interesting, and I thought the story sounded interesting. Basically, the idea behind the story is that the main character, Guy Salvatore, his girlfriend dies mysteriously, and then he finds out that she's not actually dead. Or at least he finds this out at the very end. That she's in some sort of dream limbo. And the story also concerns a character called Good God, the redhead right here, who kind of rules heaven. And then there's like Limbo God, who's in the middle somewhere doing limbo stuff. And then there's Evil God, who rules Earth and rules over hell. And there's also a Satan character, which, go figure, I don't know how they're different. I just thought it sounded interesting. I didn't actually read it until recently. It became part of my my summer reading list. And so I started reading it. At the beginning I was kind of interested in it, but as time went on, it became just sort of a letdown. Basically, the problem being is that the storytelling is more interesting than the actual story, if you can understand that. Let me explain. Chandra Free, I apologize for pronouncing her name wrong. If you can see it right there. I apologize for pronouncing her name wrong because, in fact, she does follow me on Tumblr, and she has probably a 0.2% chance of actually seeing this video and seeing me butcher her name. I apologize. She has a good grasp on, having images side by side, allowing them to flow, allowing the story to be able to express very easily. And some, even the best superhero books, have a problem with having coherence from one panel to the next. And as Will Eisner calls it, sequential art, the sequencing is very good. So it's an easy read in that respect, but it's just not a very interesting read. Mainly because the characters are just not that interesting. As I mentioned earlier, there's the Good God, Limbo God, and Evil God. The story pretty much revolves around Good God and Evil God. There's not that much personality to them. They don't act that much differently. I'm thinking since Good God is a good God, that she wouldn't use language, but she does, which doesn't differentiate her much from her brothers. And they don't do a whole lot at all, aside from walk around and spout exposition. Now, the story is mainly concerned with Guy Salvatore, this guy floating around up here. The dealio is with him, yeah, his girlfriend is dead, but he is just so... I don't want to use the word pathetic, but that's the best word to describe him. Because the whole story, he just complains about his girlfriend's death. I know, that's heartless for me to say. But this isn't the real world. This is a piece of fiction, and when your character whines and moans too much, they eventually become pathetic. That's why I don't like a lot of anime and manga, because a lot of the lead characters spend time lamenting that they have to save the world and complaining over some past grievance that's in their life. And when you do it so much, when that's your only defining character trait, when that's the only thing you talk about, it becomes very tiring after a while. And that's all we get from this guy, is him whining and complaining about his girlfriend being dead. Oh, that sounds terrible. And him just being generally mopey. I mean, maybe if he was a little older, I would have found it a little more interesting because he's had more stuff to do in his life and he's not living off his parents. But he's just really lame. The story does try to rectify things at the end by having these pretty detailed character bios. But that is the most shameful version of exposition, when we can't get into these characters organically and naturally through the story. It has to all be spouted at the end. I'm really just not, I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. A story is any form of entertainment, when, at least if it's, film or a book or a comic, is made or broken on its characters. And when that's all that this is about, when the characters are just so uninteresting, nothing else is interesting about the story. The story is also about the world that these characters inhabit, this very kind of, this is what I'm looking for. It's very abstract. It's a very abstract world. It does an interesting job of you not knowing what's up, because he'll sink into like a dream world and then he'll wake up, and the way the art is done, it's very Dave McKean-ish. If you've read Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum, which has nothing to do with the video game, you'll get what I mean. It's very, very abstract. It's very psychedelic. But that's interesting. That is interesting. But the world that is crafted in this book is just too random. There's no structure. Here we get another problem with the characters. More characters who work in this, you know, heaven-hell world are just thrown at you ad nauseum, and they're not developed, and what's the point? And I mean, if it was a movie like Ponyo or Constantine, which is almost about having new stuff thrown at you constantly, maybe that would have been interesting, but this book has a very clear goal, in which is to set out characters and set up a world, and when they don't really set up anything, you're left with a pretty looking book. Which is what it is. It is a very, very beautiful book. Sometimes it's kind of hard to understand what's going on because of the very scrawly nature of the images and some of the text, but it is very, very pretty. The use of color is just amazing. So if you want to get it for just like a tabletop book, I mean, look at it. The binding itself is magnificent. It's very glossy and shiny. Pick it up. It's actually pretty expensive for a graphic novel because it is hardcover, but if you're looking for a good story, you're not going to find it here. It's just not that interesting, which is a shame because it is beautiful. And even though it says Volume 1 on the side, I'm not sure when another one is going to be released. If it is eventually released, I might pick it up just to see if the story goes anywhere, but I'm just not interested in it to continue with the story. So yeah, this is The Extraordinary Rayman signing off. I will see you next time.